Hi, can you hear me? Yes, it works. Very, very loudly. Welcome everyone. What a nice surprise actually, because the Eventbrite didn't say there was quite as many people that have turned up, so that's always a plus. So welcome, and welcome to this presentation by Michael Angove. I'm going to give a little bit of context of him myself. I've known him for 20 years now, since we started the Royal College together. He's a Welsh boy like me, so he's here to talk about his work, his process. He's come all the way from London, well not London, you don't live in London, where do you live? Just outside of London. Just for this, for you. So give him a large round of applause and welcome Michael. So you can speak into this or this
mic for the video?
Yeah, ideally.
Hello. Wow. Elocution. Thank you very much for coming today. As Kyle said, my name is Michael Angove, and predominantly today I'm going to be talking to you essentially about the most important thing in the room, which is me. So I'm just going to be talking about, no, I'm joking. Sarcasm, it's a UK thing, just laugh, okay? I'm going to be talking about my job, which is essentially a freelance designer, and my history from living in Wales through to what I do today, and hopefully what you'll get from that is how you could survive in various ways, you know, not just about working for companies, but get out, stay out. But, you know, hopefully what you'll get from this is lots of different ways into the industry. And as textile people, I don't know if you are textile people, I'm a textile person, and we were always told at a very young age that textile people are kind of invisible. We give our designs over to the fashion industry or to the interiors industry, and your name is erased from the history of the design. But actually what you're giving to you know, the interior people is a way to sell 1 million meters of fabric that used to be white, and they make a lot of money and you get a fixed fee. So anyway, on the show. Let's have a look. So there are lots of amazing exports from Wales. The first one is Sir Anthony Hopkins. So he is Welsh. He comes from a very industrial part of Wales, and not too far from us too. So I just thought I would start with this because, you know, it's textiles related. He's talking about suits. The other major export of Wales, let's just go back. The other major export of Wales is rugby. And as you'll see, the blonde person, that's me playing rugby there. Bump. I can't play it, terrible sports. But I don't know, Americans, you love sports, don't you? Crazy people. Next, the other two major exports from Wales. We are looking at them right here. We are looking at not the Queen, not James Bond, but the dogs. They are Welsh corgis. We do actually have a breed of dog, which are Welsh corgis, and those are them. So, then this. Welsh people, we're short, we're handsome, Wales is really green. So this is me getting my acceptance form for the Royal College of Art, leaving Wales. And they do say that the Shire was modelled after Wales. And yeah, that's exactly where I lived. So, Wales, we have a different language. Everything is in Welsh as well as English. As you'll see here, there are lots of really easy to pronounce words like Llanllwchen and Ysbyty and Canol I Dref, and the one at the bottom, which is really easy to I can't even pronounce them. They're so difficult. Kyle, can you do any of them? Okay. So, let me tell you a little bit about where I come from, because it's pertinent to how I feel as a designer, which is kind of slightly psychopathic. In that I come from a coastal region, South Wales. I come from a town called Barry. This is not Barry, but this is a coastal area in South Wales. And why I'm using this picture is actually because what's interesting about coastal towns is that you have two landscapes. You have essentially this verdant green lush landscape that meets this very minimal sea landscape. And that really sums up my work, because my work and my mind is kind of very split into two very definite areas. And let's start here. So, can you all see what this is in this paper? What is it? It's a staple, right? And everyone should really have a staple. And my staple is a memory that I have from my childhood of being in this winter garden where everything is dead, and there's this rose bush, which is probably 6 foot tall, and the entire rose bush is black, covered in lichen all the way up to the top, because we have a lot more moisture in Great Britain, so everything gets covered in lichen and moss and gets really rank, is the word we use. And then at the top of this dead rose bush was this incredible living bright pink flower, and that is my staple go-to memory. And I kind of encourage everybody to have this staple idea about something that inspires them. It could be a person or it could be a thing, but for me it's this memory of this dead garden with just like these little jewels of living things. But the real reason why I bring this picture along is that actually that is not a staple, that's actually a drawing of a staple. So part of my work is trompe-l'oeil. Has anyone heard of this term? Hi. You know it, right? Good. I like your arm action. So trompe-l'oeil is French for deceive the eye or play with the eye. And a lot of the things that I specialize in is photorealistic drawing, where they have a drop shadow so it looks like the object is sat on the page. That is trompe-l'oeil. And here is another little tiny tester. So you have a staple, which I kind of think looks crap at the moment there, but there was kind of light glinting on it, so it was very white. And then you have these indentations from where you have the staple, and I've pulled it out and I put it somewhere else. But again, that is all drawing. Not the embossed bit at the bottom where it says France, but the, I'm not that crazy. But, well, I kind of am that crazy. But the indentation with the holes and the staple, those are all drawings done in pencil. And the kind of work that I do is this kind of stuff. Very realistic, it's all done in pencil, it's all done in real scale, and I draw only from reality, only in daylight. So they are very humble things that I draw, very ordinary things. String, keys, dead bees, because you can find them, rather than living ones, because they'd probably sting me. I have a total infatuation with string. Who's with me on that? Yeah, okay. Yes! I'm the kind of person who goes to foreign countries and steals string. I'm crazy. But there's something about string which is really interesting. It's very handy, it's a tool. I mean, imagine your life if you didn't have any string. Nothing to hold things together, nothing to bind things together. And the machinery that's used to create string and the rope used for holding ships to harbors and whatever, the machinery they use to make string is absolutely amazing. It's essentially a cog within another cog, within another cog, within another cog. And on that cog there's thousands of little bit of threads. So even though it's very humble, actually the energy and the world that goes into that humbleness is huge. And that's essentially what my drawings are about. So here is something a little bit more kind of, I don't know, minimal again. So I draw these tiny little Victorian, Edwardian, this is a mustard spoon with a little bit of thread, tiny little knot towards the top, and then a luggage label. And it's called Kite because a lot of my work has got kind of slightly more unusual names, just to make you think a little bit more about what you're looking at. This is called exclamation mark. It's really, really simple. Why? Because it looks like an exclamation mark. But, and that really, a lot of my work is whimsical as well as slightly more cerebral. But these pieces, they probably start, something like this would be £1,500. So what I'm trying to say here, and I talk very candidly about prices, because students don't often hear enough about prices, just from doing a really excellent drawing, because I focused on drawing all the way through college. You know, it was always from reality, it was pre-computers. If you wanted to do something, if you wanted to design a shirt which had monkeys on it, then you'd have to draw the blimmin' monkeys, not take a photograph and then manipulate it. I'm not dissing computer because the other psychopathic part of my brain is totally digital. This is called Supernova. And I draw these objects because as a child I moved around quite a lot. And when you move into different houses, for some reason, the people who were in the house before often leave these kind of very random things behind. You might find a spoon in a drawer, or a bit of string on a doorknob, or a marble. I don't know if you have, do you have marbles over here? These little glass toy things? You know, sorry. I'm really stuck in Wales. Do you have libraries here? Is one thing I heard about Wales once. Like, yeah, we've got 2. Anyway. So marbles you often get stuck under skirting boards or in floorboards, and sometimes, you know, you would get these tortoiseshell butterflies, you know, trapped on windowsills, dead, you know, stuck in a little bit of cobweb. So all of these things that look really nonsensical, they're actually things that have been left behind or things that have been trapped in buildings. And what I'm trying to say about these things is that they all have a history. You know, this tiny little spoon, this is called the analog child. And this tiny little spoon here that's strung to the adult, you know, could have been owned by a little child. It's actually a salt spoon. But you know, how old is it? Let's say it's 100 years old. So how many people has that little salt spoon met? Okay? Maybe it's met like 5 people. Maybe it's met 100 people. You know, what did it do for most of its life? It's a tool, it helped people live. So these are all really important aspects for ordinary things. Like, I have a nephew, okay? He's 16. I've actually got a pair of pants that's older than my nephew. A pair of pants like underwear pants. I don't know, what do you call them? Like knickers or whatever. And the point I'm saying that is that ephemeral things, you know, ridiculous objects like these steps here, they serve as function, but one doesn't give them any credibility. But they're really important. So by drawing them in a very realistic way, photographically, and within a very large white space, letting them breathe, you bring importance to these random objects. And you'll notice, or you might not notice, that actually if there is reflections of the room that I'm in, like in this small mustard spoon here, you can see the reflection of the window, but there is no reflection of me, because actually I kind of think, and actually I know, because I studied geology to a certain level, if you left these objects in a drawer, and just close the drawer, but video the drawer from within, you put a camera in the drawer, okay? And you let that video play for 1,000 years. And then you come back, we'll all be dead, but then you come back, and then you play the video high speed, right? Those things will move. And they will move from electrical interference, static, weathering, erosion, oxygenation, all of those things. So they will move over 1,000 years. So what I'm saying is that just because we live our lives in high speed, doesn't mean that these things aren't moving, they don't have a life of their own. Am I baking your noodle? Yeah, you and the ham, right? Yeah, good. So this one is a long spoon with a pair of wings made out of raffia, and this is a giant silk moth. And I'm going to ask a really, really difficult question. You don't have to answer it now, but if anybody can tell me why I called it Thrones, it's nothing to do with Games of Thrones. I've never even seen it. But I'll let you mull that over. If anyone can figure out why these two objects, which both have wings, are called thrones, then you get an award of being able to shake my hand or something, I don't know. Anyway. So here are the drawings. You can see this is a very, very famous London photographer. I can't remember his name. He bought a very large piece, and you can see how I frame them, the scale of the drawings. So they really are very, very minimal. And you can see that the paper is floated within the frame, and you can see the very rough edge of the paper because it's handmade paper, so it has this really amazing, it's called a deckled edge. And if you look at the top of the paper, above the feather and the spoon, there's a little mark there, which I'll explain in a moment. Let's have a look. Okay, and here's the moment. Does this play? Here you go. So at the edge of every single one of the drawings that I do, I draw a pin. And the pin looks really, really, really super duper realistic. And that's because I have a heritage in textiles. So everything that I've shown you so far is actually fine art, but I am trained only in textiles. My first BA was in textiles. My Master of Arts was in textiles. Remember that staple I told you about, that dead rose that I love so much? Well, this is the beginning of a larger drawing of a dead rose. I love it. Just something about death that I love, but it's kind of alive as well. You can feel the crinkliness of the leaves. But what I love about this is that actually where the light is where the shadow is cast, there's a glow of ochre. So there's a little bit of translucency coming through those leaves. This is part of a larger composition. And also I wanted to talk to you about being brave, because I think there's far too much not being brave in the world. This is a drawing of a rasher of bacon, and it's for a competition. And I'd won the competition the previous year. It wasn't a big deal, okay? It's easy to win competitions. But I wanted to enter it the next year, and I wanted to do something that people had never seen before, so I did this rasher of bacon. And I know it's kind of contentious in certain ways, but it's just a drawing at the end of the day. And here's me looking tired on Coke as usual. I mean Coca-Cola, sorry. Coca-Cola in the glass. So I don't drink, so Coke goes straight to my head. Wow. And this is the drawing next to it, and you can see the rasher of bacon. You can see the rose in real scale. And this is the final composition. And if you, so this is an allegorical piece. It's called Date Night. And the reason I called it that is because, I don't know if anyone could work it out, but it's actually a girl and a boy, and they're arriving for date night, and the boy is represented as a meathead, and the girl is represented as a dead rose. Sorry, it's really cynical. It's really cynical. And the girl is arriving. You see, what's happening here is this 16-year-old, 16-year-old girls, I'm not a 16-year-old girl, I don't know, but observationally, you want to act older, you want to act more mature, you want to act sexy for date night. But actually, you're only 16 years old, and you should be 16 years old for as long as you can. So she's symbolized as this kind of withered rose before her time. And she comes with a single knot, which is representational and symbolic. And symbolizes a hope or a dream or a memory, because as legend has it, people will put knots in string to remind them of things. And then the boy comes with this single domino, which has got this black dot, which represents a hole in one. So this is a story, a very cynical story about date night. And if you look in the corners of the paper, you'll see the staples that you saw at the beginning, because actually I didn't want to present something that was terrifically clean and terrifically perfect. I wanted something that was slightly grubby. And then when I did this, you'll see how I stick the paper down just at the top with this brown parcel tape, this brown sellotape. And I got to thinking, well, that would be really cool. So I started drawing human figures because I'm really passionate about gender neutrality and the human as opposed to how we identify so much. Because we're all humans at the end of the day. So I started drawing these figures with this sellotape. And then I started drawing them. So this is a face of a famous model. I can't remember. It's like a 1940s model. And then I copied it in parcel tape. And then I meticulously drew the parcel tape. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm like drawing it first with parcel tape, and then perfectly drawing the parcel tape drawing. Yeah, I'm lost. But this is the competition piece that I put in. So there's the piece, it's perfectly drawn. So it looks like there's sellotape in there. And it was great, the response was great. The response was either, oh my God, that's amazing, or it was like, Emperor's new clothes, this is a waste of time, how dare you present sellotape in a frame. And I love that, because that's the creepy two-brain person that I am. And also I love to shoot people down who think it's one thing, and I'm like, no, it's not, haha. Control freak. This is Ronnie Wood. Ronnie Wood is one of the Rolling Stones, and his wife, Sally here, actually bought the drawing for his Christmas present, which is great. And that drawing was I think it was £4,000, which I think it was probably about maybe 1,000 below what it really should have gone, but I'm sometimes out of the loop on that because it depends on the gallery who's showing it. And I'll just let you know that I get between 50% and 45%. So from a £4,000 drawing, I'll get between £2,000 and I don't know, 1.7 or something. What is that in dollars? £4,000, like $5,000? Something along those lines? So, you know, when you work with a gallery, they will take quite a hefty fee, you know, and galleries have to take your artwork all over the world sometimes, so they have to get their money back for that. Okay, so coming back into the design world, I work on products. This is a giant tray. This is a 65 centimeter tray top. So what I've done here is I've taken all my drawings, I've scanned them all, I've meticulously cleaned them up in Photoshop. A lot of effort goes into it because I've arranged them all so that the shadow is always on the right side, the correct side of the drawing. And I don't know if you've ever seen these kind of African shields, feather shields, which interior designers pay thousands and thousands of pounds for. It's kind of roughly based on that. But like all of my work, there are hidden things in it. So in the drawings there's the pin, and in this one there's a single spoon. So it's kind of like a spoon chasing an egg through a forest of feathers. So a lot of my work is conversational. And a lot of the textiles that I was taught at college was conversational textiles. Have you heard of the term conversational textiles? So it's telling you a story. And actually, whenever I design textiles, we'll go into that, my brain works like MTV. It's kind of like I have a visualization or a video of what the design's going to look like and its movement, and then it becomes a textile. And these things are all made on license. Do you know about licensing? So you create a design, you find a manufacturer, you give the design away for free to the manufacturer, ostensibly, and then you have a contract with them, wrong order, get the contract first, and then they will manufacture the product, sell it all over the world. So, for example, when they came to me and said, oh, Michael, we'd like you to do something, they were Swedish, I can't do a Swedish accent, oh my God, they want to, you know, we want you to do trays. Strange German. And I went, I went to the Royal College of Art, I don't do trays. Boom! I do high fashion couture. And they were like, please, can we have a design? And I was just like, oh, take these old designs, take them away. And then like 6 weeks later, these trays arrived on my desk, and I was just like, oh my God, they're so handy. I could put my laptop on it, I could put my toast on it, I could put my jewelry on it, you know, all the diamonds. And I thought, this is really easy, actually. So I was really snobby at the beginning. And then I just thought, well, actually, this is a really good gig. Because with these trays, let me break it down. It's a hard breakdown, but it's worth it. Let's see that little blue tray there. It's really small. It's about this big. And that retails in a shop, I'll stick to dollars, okay? That retails in a shop for $20. The shoppers bought it from the manufacturers, the people I gave the design to, for, let's say $8. So the shopper's already making a lot of money, okay, per tray. I get 10% royalty, which is really good. A lot of people on 5. So from the $8, I get 80 cents, yeah? So it sounds like crap, right? It sounds like crap. But because these guys sell these trays all over the world, like Brazil, Australia, Korea, which is a huge market at the moment, and the last quarterly check, so the last seasonal check I got was for $4,000. So from all of those 80 cents and 90 cents for the slightly bigger one and $1 for the biggest ones, I got $4,000 for the last 4 months. So it's a really good gig, because once you've done the designs, you don't have to worry about them again. They're done, you know, and they just go on. So this is the cutlery design. This cutlery design has been in world service for approximately, 7 years, and I've only tweaked it. So for that artwork that I did at the initial stage, I've made an awful lot of money from that. There are downfalls, of course. So it's not about just designing a design and then giving it to a manufacturer and the manufacturer sells it and you make megabucks. Your design has to be perfect. If your design doesn't sell, you don't get any money. Okay? So if you can get the perfect equation, I have a friend who made a wrapping paper, and again, at the Royal College of Art, we're not taught about wrapping papers, okay? Wrapping papers are dirt. But she made a wrapping paper, and it just had drawings of cupcakes. It really wasn't very good, frankly. It was colourful. But she sold the rights to it to something like, do you have Paper Chase here? Okay, like a really big stationers. Who are really big stationers here? Okay, them. And now she makes like $500 a week just from that one wrapping paper. So that's like $2,000 per month just from one wrapping paper, because the quantities are so huge. They sell in all the stationery shops in all of the nation and like that. So if you can get into licensing, it's a really good gig. And actually there are trade fairs out there where people specifically are looking for licensees and licensors. And we do, I do table, I say we quite a lot, it's a royal we, it's just me in a studio in the garden. So some of the drawings I've taken through into product, like placemats and table mats. And it's the same as the trays, you know, it's a really good gig to get. And, you know, again, there's always something, with most of my stuff, there's always something that you have to find. So this is quite obvious, it's just this tiny little key inside the teaspoon down at the bottom. And there it is in a different colorway. Oh, a little video, fancy a video? I'm exhausted. Here you go. Is this sound?
When you look out into the garden, what you see there is actually a battle for survival. I like the way you see the thorns and the spikes and the root and all of that. But I particularly love when they scramble around and they weave in between other plants, and they have really strange like little anomalies that you really only get in a garden. The most exciting part of the process for me is when you've done all the preparation, I've photographed or scanned all of the flowers, all of the plants, all of the little filaments, all the elements, all the little climbing bits, all the hooks, all the thorns. They've all been meticulously cut out, which takes days, if not weeks. And then the best bit is to actually compose them together. You start building this really complex, repeating chinoiserie. It's kind of like a bit of alchemy. It's kind of, you're creating something really epic. You know, I want my designs to be really explosive. I want them to be really dramatic. I want them to be over the top. I want them to be maximalist. And I want them to envelop you. So I put in tons of drama and tons of story. And so I think the designs, what makes them special is the sheer abundance of ingredients and the conversation that's within the composition. I want people to get huge amount of enjoyment from the patterns. What I want them to go home with is this newfound appreciation for the weird and wonderful world of plants and flowers and insects and animals. I used to see beautiful ferns growing out of the top of derelict Victorian buildings. I used to see great, shocking blue giant thistles growing out from railway sleepers, and beautiful insects like diamonds and jewels, and those things have inspired me all of my life.
Cool. So that's just a video that leads into the other side of my brain. Remember that landscape, the beach landscape, where it's verdant green on one side and then barren and derelict landscape of sea on the other side? So the landscape side is really like my drawings. They're very minimal, they're very cerebral, they're very atmospheric. But this work is looking the other direction, into the countryside. It's totally opposite. It's maximalist, which is the opposite of minimalist. And it's really over the top. And I really believe in bravery at the moment. I got to get on a plane later, and I hate flying, so I've got to believe in bravery today. So, this is a design. This is called Phoenix Rose, and it's a kind of well. Does everybody know Jo Malone, the perfume shop? Is there anyone here from Jo Malone before I wreck them? No? Is the storekeeper not here? Phew! No, I love working with Jo Malone. It's a great company, and I just did this project with them. I had to do 27 of these beasts, which took me, they wanted it in 6 months, and I was like, sure, to get the contract, you know, you would. You say, sure, I can do it in 6 months. You know, 2 years later, they're like, where are the designs? I'm like, they're coming. Stop nagging me. No. So it took me 2 years to do the 6-month project, but that's what has to happen sometimes. You just have to speak to them very politely. And so that design became this kind of product. This is a one-off thing. It's a bespoke thing. So it's not a mass market thing. And as you can see, you know, of course it's not a mass market thing. The blimmin' thing is on fire. And we had a really horrendous tragedy in the UK last June, where one of our tower blocks caught fire and the whole building with 87 people trapped on the top floor burnt, which is shocking, absolutely shocking, but they just clad it in modern cladding, and believe it or not, it didn't pass the safety regulation, and the whole thing went up. It's absolutely horrendous. And it happened literally a month before this was due to come out. So I've done a soft kind of release on it. And so it's kind of a weird thing for me, this design. I had the design done months ago, but it kind of reminds me of the Grenfell Tower disaster, which is absolutely shocking. And this is some of my older work, and why I'm showing you this is that I think it's kind of still relevant, because at the Royal College of Art I was really passionate about hybridity in design. And what I mean by that is that you're always trying to create originality. You're always trying to create something new, something brave, something bold, something fabulous, exquisite and exciting. So while at the Royal College of Art, I just thought, well, if you take a flower and you cross-pollinated it with something totally different, like, for example, I don't know, a chair. If you cross-pollinated them, what do you get? So my thesis was about hybridization as an actor of originality. And I started looking at all the different ways, all the different types of hybrids that we know about. So we know about like mongrel dogs. Do we use that term over here? Yeah. So you cross one with something else and you get something else, like a cockapoo, you know? So you get something original. And then, you know, so that's kind of like a high-end kind of done at a genetical, you're splicing genetically. And then the next one down, if you look at something like, Frankenstein. So Frankenstein monster was created by putting together lots of different parts of other people's bodies, and then you created this singularity called Frankenstein's monster because it didn't have a name. It was just known as Frankenstein's monster. The doctor is called Frankenstein. So part of my thesis is about reading Frankenstein the book, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a Victorian novel. And what I learned is that you can either chuck things together really ad hoc like that, or you can spice at a genetical level to get the cockapoo. So with this, most of my stuff is crossed with insects because I love insects. I wouldn't go near them. I'd probably kill them if they're alive, but I love insects. But with this one, what's unusual about this lily is that actually you're only seeing the back of the lily. So little tiny things like looking at the back of things rather than the front of things can give you a little twist. And actually, if you look at the stems as well, they're all joined together like a network, like knuckles. So I was looking at tarantula leg knuckles, and this was one of the end results. It's a beautiful print, even if I do say so myself. Here it is visualized as a suit, but unfortunately it's sold to a leggings company, and it was printed not in 1,000 colors, but in 7 colors. And the result was horrendous, and I hated it, so I've obliterated it from my memory bank. But this is, these are big prints. A lot of these things are big prints. These are huge prints. Oh, by the way, this is the star of the video. This is Audrey, our dog, Jack Russell. Delightful. So here I'm looking at blobs. And the reason is because when you look at a caterpillar, they have these incredible skins and they shed their skin. So I was thinking about making prints that look like shedded caterpillar skins and really bold, brave kind of imagery. So these are kind of monoprints that have been kind of pulled apart in a kind of cubic way, the cubes inside it. And then these are the visualizations. So these are really old. Like, they're probably older than you lot. These are 17 years old. How old are you, like 12? Well, anyway. And really strange distortions, talking about plants from a scientifical kind of genetical way. Because, what you've got to remember is that when you're designing something, you are the creator. You can do anything. So if you actually could design something like in, I don't know, with holograms or something, and you could pull this over here, you'd go crazy. You'd be awesome about it. You'd add a 3rd arm here and 10 eyes there. And there's nothing stopping you from doing that about your designs. You are the creator. You are God to that object, so you can create anything you want. And here, I distorted it. Just see the stem of the tulip, and then just pushing it out that way. So like a kind of, if it was like a 3-dimensional like hologram, just taking it and pushing it. So the stems become flat, and they become these kind of rectangular leaf. So remember that. You are the generator. You are the creator. Okay, spiders. Gotta love them. They're everywhere. Everywhere. So this is a spider print just distorted into blocks to give this really weird kind of distorted spider print. And the point I brought this in is because you've got to be brave. You've got to go to places that people say you're not allowed to go to. I'm all about breaking rules. And when I was at college, they would like say, you can't have prints where the flowers are bigger than your hand. You're not allowed to have spiky things because nobody wants sharp things next to their neck on a shirt. You're not allowed to have anything green because it's weird. I'm not kidding you. This is the lecture I went through. And I was just like that, you know what? You can do green, spiky, big stuff. So, and I've always done that through all of my career. So this is more contemporary stuff. This is the stuff that I did for Jo Malone. I'm not going to rip a hole out of them. Not yet. And so this is for the scent Basil and Neroli. Neroli is like orange blossom, but slightly more bitter and slightly more dark. And in all of these pieces, they all have hidden insects and hidden bugs. So what I've done here is created these grand botanicals, like in the video, just from taking the actual plant. I'm all about primary research. So getting the real plant, using the real object. I photograph it, or I scan it, then I cut it out. So all these, I grew that, my neighbor grew this basil for me, and then this neroli I got from a garden center. I scanned it, photographed it, cut it out. We went to Madeira, which is infested with lizards, so I took photographs of lizards, cut them out, bunged lots of pollen on his head, so it looks like he's been in the plants, kind of eating the pollen. And then little tricks like the spider up in the top left-hand quadrant, so you can barely see these things in reality. Because this is a larger view of basil and neroli. So I'm putting this out to license, like I said before, so it can be mural art, wall art, anything you want it to be, as well as the Jo Malone stuff. Because the Jo Malone gig was really good. I said, well, I'm going to design 27 botanicals for you. It's going to take me months to do this, probably 6 weeks. And what can I do with them afterwards? And they were like, you can do anything you want with these designs as long as it's not scented. And I was just like, great. So they are now wallpapers, etc. Anything to bring the bucks in. This is white lime blossom, I don't know, or French lime blossom. I don't know if you have these trees. This is a huge tree. It looks like a chandelier. And it has these kind of strange little flowers. And when you stand underneath it, it's really scented. It's really fantastic, incredibly sweet, but with a twist of it's a very green smell. And in this, it's full of pollen and dandelion heads, but also a giant leaf nymph. Can you see the giant leaf nymph over in the bottom left-hand quadrant? Oh yeah, there you go. There's a detail. So all of this pollen head, all of these little tiny specks, they were all cut out digitally in the computer. I spend a lot of time on these designs. Is that a video? Yeah. Okay, hips.
You're no good for me. Dissecting the atlas for places we've been. Your list is longer, but you've got more years on me. But don't do dispense, we take it away.
That song. I sang that song. Lie. So with the Jo Malone, that was a small part of the Jo Malone project. They actually asked me to design botanicals for every single one of the scents. There are 27 in their range. And then 5 of them became the soaps. And I made all of the soaps kind of slightly bespoke. So when you turn them over, there are bugs in them that you have to find. It was great. I went to Bergdorf's, okay, to do a presentation, and there was this lady there. And she was just like, oh, tell me about the bugs, and tell me about these soaps. And I'm like, oh yeah, I designed the wrap. How do you do? And and there are loads of insects you have to find that makes it interactive. And she was like, there are bugs in the soap. I'm like, yes, there are bugs in the soap. It's a scrub soap. But so for all of those designs, I imported the plants, or I grew the plants. This is mimosa in my little studio. Hi, this is me. It's enormous, but then I'm ridiculously short. And then this is the design for mimosa. This design is the most complicated design I've ever done. It took 8 weeks to complete. So all of the little pom-poms, I had to cut them out, not all of these, but a great deal of them, and then I had to hand paint in all the little filaments and fronds that came off the pom-poms. All the leaves are like frondy leaves, all have to be meticulously cut out. So then this is the scent for mimosa and cardamom. So you can see lots of cardamom exploding within the design. What I like is the central axis of the design, the kind of branches, also very insect-like, almost like antenna. And then I wanted to have moths in there because moths are attracted to mimosa, especially in the evening. And this scent is very rich. It's very spicy, it's North African, so I had to channel all of those colors. So you get juniper green, you get beautiful saffron yellows, and this beautiful kind of burnt orange. And there's no secret to building these things. A lot of these things are just photographs of me, for instance, squeezing a grapefruit to get a picture of just the droplets of the grapefruit. And then this is the grapefruit is one of their biggest selling scents, and they wanted it really fresh. And they didn't give me any description; they just gave me the scent. They didn't say we want it to have no leaves. They didn't say we want it to be really wet. I just took the scent, and I was just like, and I'm not a nose, okay? I'm the person who goes around for lunch. You serve me lamb, and I'm like, that is the best chicken I've ever had. I'm absolutely awful. So when I smell these things, I'm like, okay, well, grapefruit is really, when you open a grapefruit, it kind of sprays, gets you in the eyes, it stings. So I wanted that kind of very wet, almost like in a shower feeling, like you're in a shower for a moment. And also I sliced a lot of the grapefruits in really random locations, so you get these fantastic, almost like rainbows, which is really appropriate given yesterday's vote in Australia. And this is the end result. I love it because they look like diamonds. Honeycomb, this is lent to me by the local vicar's wife. It's really that English where I live. It's ridiculous. And then photographs of my assistant, I say assistant, work experience girl for 2 days, pouring honey. And then the end result is this design. It's called Honey and Nectarine Blossom. Right? Can't remember. It's called Nectarine Blossom and Honey. So you have lots of honeybees in between these branches with all these fantastic blossom flowers. I've got a really funny story actually about this blossom tree. I don't have a nectarine tree in my garden. So I went to the local garden centre and there was one nectarine tree in the garden centre. Remember, I get everything firsthand. So I was very lucky because if it's out of season, it's out of season. I can't get it. I can't import a nectarine tree from Kenya, for instance. So I went to the garden centre. It had one tree. It was about this tall, and it had literally 3 flowers on it. So I'm literally going to the cashier desk like this. Nobody breathe. Nobody breathe. So I take it to the cashier desk. The flowers are still on it. I pay for it. I get to the car. What do I forget? I've got a Mini. So I'm trying to get in the back of the car. I'm like that. Turn it on its side. No. So I just think, well, I don't need the actual tree. I'll just snap it in half. So I'm there in the car park, snap like this, snapping in half. These people are in the car behind me going, oh my God, he's got a wife at home who sent him out to get this tree. He's really peed off because he can't get it in the Mini. He's just going to go home and it's going to be a destroyed tree. And I was like, ha-ha, I'm the designer for Jo Malone. No, but I snapped it, got it in the car, got it home, and the petals were intact, luckily, and do we still have that tree? We still have that tree. It's still alive. It's still living. You have to be intrepid sometimes, and I think when you're at college, it can be quite a stagnant kind of atmosphere. So when I say intrepid, you have to get out there. And actually, that's one of the core things to my kind of designing, is that primary product or primary research. So this is a bluebell wood. Well, actually, when Jo Malone came to me and said one of the designs is like bluebells, and I was just like, it's July, the bluebell season is just gone. So I had to wait a whole year until bluebells came into season. And I only just remembered, I almost forgot about it. So getting out, and this is called is it called a bivouac? It's a bivouac. It's what scouts build in the middle when they go out scouting. Do you have scouts here? Yeah, it's a bivouac. Kind of looks like Blair Witch Project though, which I love. And I'm much more, that's like one of my staples, is the Blair Witch Project movie. You know, creepy person. And then this is the end result for wild bluebell, and you'll see that it's got all kind. I'm very generous in my designs. You should be generous. So there's lots of different types. It's not just one bluebell that I took a photograph of, cut it out, repeated it. It's like 20, it's like 30. And then what's really nice is that naturally occurring, you get these mutations in bluebells. So you have a white one and a pink one, but very, very infrequent. This is an animation? Yeah, so some of these things I had animated, not for Jo Malone, for myself, essentially. And I just got like a friend of mine to animate them for like 200 quid or whatever, I don't know. But after the Jo Malone, but what I'm trying to say here, actually, well, okay, the Jo Malone thing took 2 years and it was absolutely exhausting. I was so over it by the end of it. And as a result, that's why I burnt that rose. You know, the Phoenix rose with all the burning. I'm just like, I'm over them. I'm going to set this thing on fire. So the first design that I did was I took a Jo Malone rose, which is red roses, and I just set it on fire, essentially, and there's cinders and everything in it. I was so bored with doing these really perfect flowers that I just wanted to do really different stuff. This design is called Gaia. It's become a furnishing print, which I have here. And when I've envisaged doing these designs, I'm thinking, okay, if you all close your eyes and then you think about this desert ground in front of you, and then erupting out of it, you feel a rumble in your feet, and then erupting out of it, you have like crystals coming up, like giant crystals, and then bluebells springing up, and then the earth is whirling around, the dirt and the gravel is whirling around and going anti-gravity up, and then you have all these frondy bits coming off at the side. So it's all about layers and sizes and scales, anti-gravity, movement, density. And that's unfortunately what goes through my mind when I design most things. I have like this little video about what it's going to look like, and this is, you know, what I wanted. I wanted this explosion of crystals, frondy bits, flowers popping up, earth, you'll see the earth spinning around, all of that, all cut out and then rebuilt, and then these kind of almost like magnetic anti-gravity crystals at the sides, just to have this really great fantasy. I really believe in fantasy. And then sometimes a lot of the stuff I do is kind of very analog. So has anyone heard of Farrow & Ball, the paint company? It's a really posh British paint company. I'm sure you have one in New York. And in this case, I'm obviously exhausted because this must have taken at least 25 minutes. I'm just drawing these flowers with black ink and a pipette because I wanted it to look like, you know, some things you just can't get digitally, you have to draw them. And then this became this wallpaper, so it's a very large-scale wallpaper, and Farrow & Ball print all of the designs with this eco paint, and they use old-fashioned technology. They use huge, well, drums that are about this big, and it just prints them on really top-quality paper. So that's, I can't remember what it's called. It was only launched last September. This is another one which is based on cutout paper. And then it was really nice to see some of them made into taxis, because I guess, you know, taxis are like a classic kind of London kind of staple. See what I did there? And, you know, it was great to see that. And it probably, I don't know how long they lasted for, but, you know, Fire and Ball is like a luxury brand in the UK, and they have a store here. They wrapped the whole store in one of my prints once. This is the outside of, we have a great department store called Liberty, and I think it's by royal appointment. I don't know, but it has a great coat of arms. And from that, Liberty asked me to do a print. This is the print. I went totally different to what I normally do, because it has to be screen printed. So I took the animals from the shield. So you have lions and dragons, Welsh. Dragon is the emblem. And you have these Tudor roses, and you have this fleur-de-lis, which is these kind of really squiggly things over here. And I just built it into this manga story of kind of like, there's a unicorn as well on a different shield. And just kind of threw it around and made it really, really happy. And I named it after my husband, Peter Woodward. It's really, who's over there? Round of applause for Peter. Because Liberty don't really do like these really catchy names. They just name all the designs after people who work in the office. There's one called Sheila Murphy. So they also asked me to look at these kind of figures from classical sculpture and make that into a print. And I just thought, oh God, this is going to be really hard. This is not what I'm used to doing. And of course, everything has to be in repeat. But the end result is really, really good. So this isn't the end print, and does anybody watch Netflix? There's this thing called The Crown. Okay, so this is Princess Margaret wearing my fabric in The Crown. Everyone was like, oh my God, Netflix, Crown, and I'm like that. What? I don't even know if I got paid for that. But it's a beautiful print, and I found out from the costume designer that Princess Margaret is kind of... she's presented as slightly spoiled. So the costume designer wanted her to look like she was a wrapped up gift to herself, which is why she chose my fabric and knotted it like that, to make her look like a gift to herself, but slightly spoiled, like me. This is a picture of my little studio. I built a studio in the bottom of my garden. When I say I built, I bought one. Somebody came along and built it for me. I didn't build it. I'm not like Tarzan. And this is like half of it. And then, so it's really small. It's like 5 meters by 4 meters. But what's great is that I'm in the garden, and I have a big-ish garden, which is like, I don't know, 10 times bigger than this stage. It's quite a big garden for like UK gardens. And it's great to be able to be right in the middle of all my primary research. So if I don't have a plant, I'll grow a plant and I'll use it. And because the plants that you get in the garden, unlike plants you get at a florist, because florist plants are designed to be straight, non-scented, perfect, but I like them when they're really weird. They're a bit gnarly, they've got weird distortions, they've got skags on them and I don't know, rips and tears. I love all of that. So it's great to be in the garden next to it. This is some of my primary research, my staples. I have like a slightly gothic cabinet of curiosities vein running through me. So I collect these doll's heads. They're called bisque doll's heads. And I have things trapped in glass, and I have miniature tea sets, and all very terribly British. And I have like feathers and honeycomb, natural objets d'art, you know, things found in nature. I have crystals and just random things you find in car boots. They're probably, I don't know, 100 years old or whatever. It's probably cost, I don't know, 50 cents. And these are my drawers full of all the things that I draw. And random things I collect. I love this kind of doll's dress. It's kind of very haunting. It's like the Others movie. And one day I'll draw that. But there you go. There's my infatuation with rope on the go there. This tray at the top was covered in drawings of, do you call them ladybugs here? And it didn't go through because they just thought, oh, it just looks like an infestation. I'm like, no, it's totally cool. Go for it. They didn't do it. This is me looking grumpy. in the studio, so you can see a bit of scale, and you can see other things that I do. I do lots of different things, you know. I do portraits, very kind of distorted portraits, because I'm distorted. And this is one of my favorite movies, an American movie. But this is kind of me at the coast, ending this lecture, deciding which direction to go in, and I'll just go in any. Does anybody know what this movie is? Okay. Parting Glances, it's epic. And that's, what's his name, Steve? Yeah, he's amazing in it. It's a 1980s movie. So that's me at the coast deciding to move on with life. And this is the end of the lecture. I have some of the fabrics here, not many, because I came by a cruise boat. But if anybody wants to see, I specially commissioned the cruise boat.
Do some questions first.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
Hi, I'm very thrilled to be here to listen to your. So, what's your goal from now to
Well, that's a really good question. Because I'm getting old now, I'm 45. I hate you young people. I'm so fresh. You know you're not, you're old. Anyway, what I've decided to do at the moment is focus, give a final push on the design aspect of my life. So I'm going to probably do a fair and present a lot of the designs as upholstery fabrics, and then see how industry responds to them. So like I said, some of the designs are going to be on license, but I've decided to push through with upholstery fabric and just see how the industry responds to it, really. And then with the drawing, because I really have these two identities, I have a show in Chelsea and London next year where I have to do 30 drawings. But the reason why I said I'm 45 is that I'm getting to an age where I feel like one will win over the other. And I know that sounds really heartless. I know some of you will think you should carry on doing both, but actually, I'm not sure if I can keep on doing both. Because it takes a lot of energy doing the design work, and it takes a lot of energy to do the fine art work. So at the moment, I'm kind of giving myself a 2 to 5 year plan of super focusing on both aspects of my work and seeing which one gets the best response. And then I'll go from there. Is that okay? Okay. Hi.
I was curious, I was really intrigued by how you spoke about these two different aspects of yourself. And I was wondering, in the early stages of your design career, was that something that was obvious to you already, or how did you come to terms with sort of these multiple selves and sort of appreciate them?
I don't think I've ever come to terms with it. When I went to Winchester, I really, which is my first degree, I really just wanted to do textiles. I didn't have a style, I didn't have an agenda. And then we were always encouraged to draw things, and I was drawing, beetles to go on shirts and stuff, really all over the place. And then for the summer holiday homework, they did that thing where they like, do 10 drawings, they all have to be A1 in size. And I was just like, I don't want to do a drawing that's A1. I'll draw a key in the middle of a huge sheet of paper. And they'll love that because they're always talking about keeping breathing space and using the void. So I did that, and that was where my drawings were born. But then it was pre-computers, so I would do those drawings, like I would draw a coat hanger, and then I would print it on the back of a shirt. So my textiles, like my drawing, was very symbiotic. It was exactly the same. Then I took 3 years out, and then I went to the Royal College of Art. And then when I went to the Royal College, computers had come online. Because I finished in 95 for my first degree. I went to the Royal College in 98. And in those 3 years, academies, colleges went completely digital. So I had to relearn how to, I had to learn, I was one of those people will, where you're introduced to a computer and you're like, if I press that one, will it delete everything? How do I switch it off? Where is the on and off button? I was that person. So I had to learn from scratch, and you have to learn how to use a computer and you have to learn how to design on a computer. And also, when you're a 20-something, the last thing I wanted to do was spend hours and hours and hours drawing spoons. So during the Royal College of Art, I just switched off all of my drawing. I didn't even pick up a pencil. I just went 100% digital, all those botanical things. And then about 15 years ago, I just wanted to get back to something honest and something real, something that you could touch. So I wanted to do the drawings again, because I always knew those drawings were worth something. But they have always fought, the drawings have always fought with the design. And sure, I've brought them in to do trays and stuff, but then if you're selling a drawing for £4,000 to somebody, do they really want to see it, on a tray in Bergdorf's or something? I don't think they would. So I've always been torn, and actually I think a lot of creative people are always torn between how to distribute their creativity, whether they want to put it in this direction or that direction. And I've always thought, just do what you want to do for the day. If you want to do drawing today, then just do it. If you want to do design for the day, just do it. I've tried to just frankly ignore it and just let my body, my physical self, take over and decide what I want to do. But I'm getting, like I said, I am getting a bit older, and I'm like, one of them will have to be subdued for the other one to continue, because I've got to a stage now where I'm like, I either need to go stratospheric with the design stuff, or I need to go stratospheric with the drawing stuff. When I say stratospheric, just beyond the glass ceiling that I'm at now. So 2 years hardcore for both, and we'll see how it goes. But it is a very difficult relationship. It really is tricky. Another question?
Can I ask a follow-up question from that?
Yeah.
What place does the garden have right now in your life? Are you gardening it? Is it helping you garden it?
I designed the garden. We built it from scratch. When I say we built it, we got people in to do it. I designed it, though, with the help of Pete. And then I'm so busy in the studio. It's very difficult working from home. It's like if you're a painter and decorator and you need to paint and decorate your own home. You don't want to paint and decorate your own home. So I don't like doing the gardening so much. I just like using the garden. I'm very selfish. So Pete is predominantly the gardener, but the garden is very important to my work. It really is vital. And also when you work from home, just that tiny commute from my kitchen through the garden to the studio is so important. So, and with my designs, the garden is really, really important. And also it's one of my go-to staples. Just the smell of earth and the weirdness of nature, hooks and fronds and insects. And, I'm the kind of person, you're in the kitchen, you look out at me walking down, and then all of a sudden I'm having a kung fu fight with a bumblebee. So, but I love that engagement. I think it's really important. And I think that's a Welsh thing as well, being a kid. I was going to say being a kid on the streets, but it's not like that in Wales, like being a kid in the forest. I know where I'm going with that. But yeah, the garden's important, and Pete maintains it more than I do. Any more questions? Hello.
Hello. Very beautiful, thank you. I'm a fashion lawyer, so I'm interested in how you do the licensing and how you protect yourself from having your works copied or appropriated.
That is an amazing question, and I have got horror stories. And I have a friend who has an amazing horror story. She worked for a company called Habitat, which is an interiors brand, very big in the UK, and then it kind of went a slightly bankrupt about 7 years ago. She did this incredible design for a double duvet, and it was an engineered print of this huge, very unique folk design, very unique. Because she works for Nisha Crossland, who is a fantastic interior designer as well. She printed it, it went in the shops, she got paid for it, absolutely fine, and then literally 6 months later, it was with a different company in Australia, and it was nothing to do with Habitat, it was nothing to do with her. So what she decided to do was find out about what to do, and actually, she has an attitude a lot like me, which is we try to be as pragmatic as possible. So if somebody is ripping you off, think about it. Do you want to spend a lot of energy and a lot of pain and a lot of effort into taking this person, this business or whatever, to rights over what is effectively yours, or don't you? Now that said, I've haunted people on Twitter. People who copy my work, I just haunt them. I'm like always there. There's this girl who started doing work just like me. She was even putting pins at the edge of the paper, but not drawings of pins, real pins at the edge of the paper. I was like, I'm fine. It's fine. And then like 2 seconds later, I'm like, I want to kill that bitch. So I haunted her, and I even did a compare and contrast chart and just kind of drilled the pain and agony into me. And then and I haunted her, and she would like say, oh, here's a bumblebee and here's my drawing of a bumblebee. And I'm like, you're really good at copying, aren't you? And I would just be this ghost at the side of her. And actually, with individuals like that, you can get them like that. And she kind of shut down quite a lot. She still does them, but she shut down. With the big companies, you absolutely have to protect yourself. You can't be 100% sure that they're not going to rip you off. There's a big company we have called Marks and Spencer's. They came to me, they said, we really want to do a Michael Angove at Marks and Spencer's range. And I did the whole like, you're not big enough for me. But I didn't tell them that. I was just like, I'm sorry, it's not really my thing. And my agent at the time presented my portfolio to them. And then literally 4 months later, out come trays with spoons on them. But so it looks like a Michael Angove tray, but they were photographs of spoons, not drawn. They'd put a slight texture in the background, so it just wasn't flat color. The construction of the tray was melamine rather than wood. So they did all these slight changes. And I was kind of furious, but then I just thought, in 6 months' time, it'll be in the bargain basement bucket. So really, should I get myself up in arms about it? There have been cases where people, you see, because people get influenced by your work as well. I'm not talking about your colleagues, I'm talking about in the industry. You know, you design a wallpaper that's wisteria, which no one's doing, and then 6 months later, everyone's doing wisteria wallpaper. So you can take it like a compliment, or you can get really peed off about it. You can go and see lawyers about it and protect yourself, and you can get, there's copyright law that already protects you to a certain degree. There's a great website called They Thought We Wouldn't Notice. Have you heard of this? It's called They Thought We Wouldn't Notice, and it compares and contrasts the illustrator's work, for instance, and the rip-off. And it's brilliant reading. It's absolutely shocking what goes on in the world. But personally, I remain pragmatic. If it was something absolutely horrendous, like, I don't know, like it was actually a photograph of my work. So they'd seen the fabric, literally taken a photograph of the fabric and then reproduced that onto other fabric. I would be absolutely furious, and I would probably be going to the lawyers about that. But I would suss out the situation first. And also I'm a member of the Royal Society of Illustrators, and that gives you assistance when it comes to, we have this thing called ACID. Do you have that here? ACID in the UK, I'm sure it's a worldwide thing, ACID copyright. So you join this this ACID group, and they really are very good at helping you for any kind of copyright infringements or patent infringements and stuff like that. And also, it's gone the other way. I drew a sweet. You know those sweets that you open up and they say, like, be mine? Well, I had them when I was a kid. So I did, like, this wallpaper. No, I did this wrapping paper. And I just thought, oh, those little... It was a Valentine wrapping paper. And I just thought, those little be mine or my sweets are really cute. I'll just draw one. I just drew it from memory. Because I'm amazing at drawing. The company saw the wrapping paper and thought I'd taken a photograph of it, and they tried to sue me. And they were like, big words, we just sued Harrods for £30,000 for putting one of these in their windows. And I was just like, I drew it from a memory. And they were like, oh, you drew it? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, let's commission you. So it's tricky, but I try to remain pragmatic.
Follow up, that didn't mean just after you did your work, but did you do anything before? And then I remember that in Europe you have more rights that are here, they're born into home creation, and they're creative unregistered design rights, various things. But we don't have that.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, we have certain things that protect us, but there was about 4 years ago, there was a very prominent court case where a very, very famous portrait painter, I can't remember his name, I'm rubbish with names, can't even remember my name most of the time, he had painted a very famous person from a photographer's portrait of that person. And usually over where we are, that's usually fine, because if it's a photograph of another person's photograph, that's copyright infringement. But if it's a drawing or a painting of a photograph, not so much, because it's a different vocabulary, it's a different vernacular. But there was a court case about 4 years ago, and he was found to have copied it. So it kind of is thrown the whole copyright thing into disrepute a little bit in the UK. But we do, in the UK, we do have certain ways to protect ourselves, but like I said, people will copy you anyway. People will copy you, they will call it influenced by you. You know, it's one of those facts of life that you have to live with, and 90% of the time it's something you can live with it, but 10% of it, it's serious, takes away people's money, you know, affects people's income. It's really important. So be pragmatic is what my response is to that. And with licenses, you have to get the contract sorted out. You have to sign on the dotted line before you hand over any artwork. So I'm quite good with contract law now. So, you know, you just read it and read it and read it. And if you need them to simplify it, just send it back and say, I need it to be simplified, or explain this section to me. And also I have written into contracts a cancellation fee. So if I'm creating something bespoke for somebody, I say 25% up front, because frankly I'm broke. 50%, and then 75% has to be paid if it's cancelled before the end of the project, and the remaining of the 100. So I have a cancellation fee built in there as well. If they like saying, oh, you know, we changed our minds, and you're like 3/4 of the way through a group of designs, that's not on. So I have a cancellation fee. So you have to just make sure that those contracts are good for you. Yeah.
One more question, if there's any. Yes.
Hi. Can't hear you, sorry. I'm going to come closer. 45 years old, ears.
So I am wondering, how does print function in design?
Wow, well, I mean, print functions in lots of aspects of design. You know, for a start, if we look at it universally, print can be put on concrete, so you can put it on the outside of buildings. Print can be used on fabric to decorate what would be a very boring white shirt into making it from a $14 shirt into a $1,000 shirt, for instance. Print can be used on iPhones. It could be used in, you know, as covers. It could be used on bags, upholstery, everywhere. Wood, you can print wood. You can print anything. You can print glass. I've seen everything. I've even seen like printed hair. I mean, the world of print is absolutely crazy out there. It's surface pattern. And what you have to realize is what I said earlier, is that you're making a white fabric rich, luxurious, interesting, conversational. But the textile industry resists you earning a certain amount. So like a fashion print, if you go to like Express, you have Express here. So if you went to Express and you presented your portfolio, what's the maximum you could get for a fashion print? Like $500? And when you give them that design, you're handing over the copyright. That does not happen in the world of illustration. You never give away the copyright. You give away the rights. They buy the rights from you, but you retain the copyright. So I can only think of textiles where the entire world industry, you actually give away the design with the copyright. It's actually crazy. You should really, but that is the way the world is. You have to get those designs going, because actually it can be very lucrative. When I worked for a textile firm, I used to produce 5 designs a day. I would never work more than an hour on a design. I used to use a digital stylus for hand drawing directly into the computer. So, and if you sold 3 of those designs, which is good, then you'd make a lot of money. It's a really, really good return. But I've moved away from fashion. I've moved into lifestyle, and with lifestyle prints you can get a lot more. Prints for upholstery starts at £1,000, $1,000 instead of $500, so it's twice as much. And then with lifestyle print, you can really focus on building up licenses. So I'll sell you that print, I'll give you the rights to that print for glass only, glassware. And I'll give you the rights to this print for upholstery, and I'll give you the rights to this print for wall coverings. So it's much more lucrative to work like that, but it's very difficult to do that in fashion. But print, I think, is really vital. And actually, one of the at a tangent, children's wear, one of the biggest textile markets, because kids grow. So in one season, in a couple of months, they might have outgrown the t-shirt they bought. So actually, you know, I was very much like Royal College of Art. I don't do children's wear, it's below me. I do bespoke couture stuff. But actually then when I started working in the kids market, I was just like, it's great. I can just draw a flamingo and put a bow on its neck, and it's like, I don't know, $500. You know, it's really, really easy. And next month I'll do exactly the same, but I'll put an umbrella under his wing or something like that. So kids wear is really, really good. Print is really vital, but the industry, especially in fashion, keeps the textile designer low. They don't like us because it's the way the industry is. It really is. And it is difficult. So I'm not anti-fashion. I used to work for Jean-Paul Gaultier in Italy and Hugo Boss and all of those people, and I loved it. You get lots of accolade, but you can't rest. You know, once you've done that design, you're on to the next season, as I'm sure all of you know. And you know, I'm totally invisible. You know, that wonderful tattoo top that's walking down the catwalk, but by Jean-Paul Gaultier, is actually me. I came up with the idea of doing it. I designed it, but it's under his name. But then if it wasn't for Jean-Paul Gaultier, would that garment be on the catwalk anyway? So it's a difficult area, and I think it needs...
Spatial prints, right?
Yeah.
Spatial.
Everything's always new. Yeah. Everything is always new. That said, as a...
Creating by yourself, or somebody can give you a brief? How it is working?
Well, it works in both ways. If a company comes to me and they will give me a brief sometimes and say, we want this, this, and this, and this, which is fine by me as long as, I don't know, I like them, because liking the company you're working for is really important. Maybe at the beginning of your career, you really just need the work, okay? So you'll just sell your soul to the devil, but try not to. But now I'm a bit like, I don't really like working for them. John Lewis is a big company in the UK, huge. What's the equivalent here? Nordstrom or something like that. Hate them. Hate working for them. So yeah, you can choose your client, but you can do what they tell you to do, or you can create your own collection, and you go out there, you do a trade show, and you sell. But you need to do the trade shows, and trade shows are expensive. So, you know, a trade show to sell these is going to cost me £8,000, so that's like $10,000. You know, that's just for one trade show. You're meant to do 2 a year, and you're meant to do it for 3 years in a row to actually get your name out there. So the print industry is tricky, like any industry, and that's why a lot of my work is illustration as well as, because actually you can make a lot more money in illustration. I had a friend who did a poster for the Underground. He did like 6 posters for the Underground, and he gets like $20,000 every year just to have them on the Underground. So that just does not happen so much unless you get the licenses together. Okay? Ah, cool. Okay, guys.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Give him a clap. And you could take a look at Michael's website, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming, and I'm sure that they were all very inspired, and I think my students are going to understand me a little bit better now, because that was just me up there talking. Everything that you said about being brave and taking risks. Yours is worse than mine. But it's validating as well. We've not actually spoke for about 17 years, and we are coming at it from exactly the same perspective. And that level of commitment and dedication to your work is what you have to be able to be successful. You know, you can't do it halfway. So on that note, give him a clap again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael.